Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Autistic Commando channel, and I'm going to give you 16 terms you should know when dealing with autism. The first term is autistic or autism. Autism is a heritable condition, meaning it can be passed down from parent to child or grandparent to child because sometimes it skips generation. And in Native American terms, it's takiwatanga. Takiwatanga. I think I said it right. Which means his, her, own time and space. Autistic derives from auto, which means self. And autism comes in more flavors than Baskin-Robbins. It's a full spectrum. But speaking in general terms, there can be disabilities with it and there can be abilities with it. Everybody is different. They're their own unique person. The one consistency that I've seen with a lot of individuals that are autistic is an ability to analyze and to be very structured and to take things quite literally. And while some people have argued that vaccines can cause autism, vaccine toxicity and the body's inability to process all of the chemicals within a vaccine can cause symptoms similar to autism on the higher support needs spectrum. And somebody who is not autistic is known as neurotypical, or basically a regular person who behaves standard. We also use the term allistic. In fact, within the autistic community, we don't like to use the word neurotypical because nobody's ever really typical. We're all unique people. But allistic is non-autistic. Auto, self, allistic, everybody, you get the gist. Aspergers is also a term referred to autistic people who have micro-savants, and we're going to cover that in a little bit. People who are more analytical and more capable than other individuals who have stronger support needs. However, recently in the DSM-5, Asperger's has been written off and just turned into autism. And the DSM-5 is a diagnostic manual that lists out all sorts of mental and psychological conditions, including autism. Basically, it's the holy grail of psychological diagnostic criteria. Ish. Now, do I seem autistic? No, because I do a thing called masking. Masking is urban camouflage. It's where we pretend to be like all of you so that we can fit in and not be bullied, ostracized, and have fun, become friends. So the analytical autistic individuals like myself study everybody else around us and start to emulate their behavior in order to fit in and be seen as not weird. Which brings us to our next term, scripting. Scripting is where we take different figures of speech and different sayings and try to adopt those sayings and use them in a normal situation. Think of it like practicing phrases in the mirror. That's scripting. Now, one thing you will encounter with a lot of autistic individuals is what's called prosody, meaning our inflection and our tones don't change. It's very monotonic. So same tone all the way through the conversation. Obviously, I'm not doing that right now, but normally within my friend circle, I tend to engage in prosody. Flat-faced, flat tone, but still funny. I mean, people laugh. But then there's echolalia or echolalia, which is repeating words or phrases seemingly without any meaning whatsoever. Quite often I'll say, ding ding, just comes out of nowhere and it's just there. That's echolalia. And quite often it's a coping mechanism either to fill the silence or to just basically stim. And then we have stimming, also known as self-stimulatory behavior, which is performing an action to provide comfort to oneself. And stimming at first glance appears to be an action without any real purpose. But for example, this right here is stimming. I'm using an ONO Roller. Oh no, it's ONO. But other types of stimming can be playing video games. For example, I love Broforce, but it's a video game that I've beaten multiple times and I just play it as a pleasant distraction. And that's effectively what stimming is a self-distraction. However, doing the same thing over and over and over again could also be turned into perseveration, which is a condition where a person is stuck in a loop of behavior as a self-soothing, self-coping mechanism of stimming. Though to be fair, an onlooker seeing somebody going through perseveration, so repeating the same phrase over and over and over again, such as I am okay or I am a cocoon, they might relate it to somebody going through trauma or PTSD, because that's what happens when somebody's in a PTSD episode. And perseveration doesn't have to be a localized behavior. It could be watching the same 5 minutes of a TV episode over and over and over again. It's a method of self-soothing. So think stimming 2.0. And when people stim as a self-soothing behavior, it's mostly to prevent a thing called burnout. Now, what is burnout? Burnout is when somebody's mind becomes overexhausted. And I have a video on my channel describing what burnout is at length. But burnout is basically your body giving you a warning that, okay, you're overusing the neural pathways in your brain on whatever it is that is causing you exhaustion. And burnout should not be taken lightly. Again, I have a video on my page teaching how to minimize burnout. Expert pro tips. And some of the causes for autistic burnout are masking. So masking, think of it like a method actor like Christian Bale. Christian Bale dives into the character that he is performing. But after several months of acting and becoming that character, he feels exhausted, as many actors do. And that mental exhaustion is your brain warning you that you are overusing certain neural pathways and you could be causing yourself damage. And there is such a thing as burnout damage, or neurological damage. Fun times. Burnout can also come from sensory overload. Think of sensory overload like walking through a room with a whole bunch of like flashing things left and right, or so many sounds around you, and you're taking all of them in. You can hear them all at the same tone, the same pitch, and it feels overwhelming. Sensory overload happens to a lot of autistic individuals because we take in a lot of information. We don't have the filters that a neurotypical or autistic person has in order to be able to sift out things that are meaningless from things that are important. We take it all in. And one of the final stages of burnout is meltdown, where a person can have what's called a fit or a tantrum in regular autistic terms. However, it's a response to feeling overburdened, overloaded, overwhelmed, and we just can't get over it, at least not in that moment. And meltdowns are things to take very seriously. A lot of autistic individuals, they will have an outburst, verbal or physical, usually not against a person, but against an inanimate object, like a cell phone, or a stuffed animal, or pillow. Though some of us can close in on ourselves and basically fall into ourselves, go silent, and become mostly unresponsive. It's a type of shutting down in order to protect ourselves emotionally and neurologically. On a more positive note, we have things called splinter skills, where we are more adept at one skill than other skills. And we often use a splinter skill to overcompensate during the masking process or to engage with the rest of the world. I call them micro-savants. But that also leads us into savant or savant syndrome. Savant syndrome is taking a splinter skill to the next level. And often with savant syndrome, a lot of skills are heavily diminished. However, this one skill is just truly pristine. For example, there's a young black gentleman who flew around Los Angeles in a helicopter and then came back down to ground and drew the entire landscape by hand from memory. Again, splinter skill 2.0. And as part of the burnout prevention process, we have envelopment. That's where an autistic individual will leave their current environment in order to basically escape without telling anybody and not considering the consequences. Think of it like your autistic friend being at a party and then just like disappearing and ghosting out because they were sensory overloaded, or they might be feeling the early stages of burnout. So to recap, we have autism, autistic or neurotypical, which we don't like to use, Aspergers, which we no longer use in the DSM-5, masking, scripting, prosody, echolalia, perseveration, stimming, burnout, sensory overload, envelopment, meltdown, savant, and splinter skill or micro-savant. Thank you for watching the Autistic Commando channel. If you like this content and you want more of it, like and subscribe down below so that you don't miss a single video. Take care.